Vibhuti ji, it's so nice of you to come here for the interview on arrows and answers. Teer chali, answer nikla. That's that's what it is. And we're talking today about what lessons we can learn from Mahabharata and Gita in current situation. So one of the first one I wanted to bring up is Arjun moment. Arjun gives an amazing solid logic against war when the war was going to happen. So all his logic, all his emotions were real. And they were very logical, very grounded, very solid. But Arjun moved on from there. But I feel that Arjun moment or what happened to Arjun still happens to people. And I think in India, many people are stuck at Arjun, when it happened to Arjun rather than move on. And recently, we saw a political leader cry on television about what will happen if the war happens to children and young people. Or then also, when Pahalgam happened, more people were asking for proof and questions that were the right questions, but the wrong timing. Your thoughts on that?
कृष्णा जी नमस्कार. आपके दर्शकों को भी नमस्कार. बहुत ही प्रसन्नता हुई कि आपने एरोज एंड आंसर्स करके अपना पॉडकास्ट शुरू किया है. बहुत बहुत हार्दिक अभिनंदन. क्योंकि आज की तारीख में मैं हमेशा से कहता रहा हूं कि सोशल मीडिया और टेक्नोलॉजी हैज बीन द one of the biggest instrument of communication. So my favorite phrase is that technology has brought a tectonic shift in the way we communicate nowadays. Messaging has become easy, and nobody reads newspapers these days to collect news. There are so many other places to collect news, and therefore it's incumbent upon people like you and I, and many more like you and I, who withheld their thoughts in their mind because we didn't have a platform to convey the message, that we can do so now. As you rightly said, Arjun was in a huge state of confusion, so much so that in the battlefield, he chooses to come and talk to Bhagwan Krishna. This is the whole thing. You are a champion of Bhagavad Gita. You can cite shlokas from there. So this is what is important for ordinary people like us to get definitely befuddled by that. Why are we doing this? Aman ki asha. Don't they forget that the enemy at the door wants to cut your throat while you are still indulging in Aman ki asha. If you are...
So you may have right logic, but timing is totally wrong.
Totally off.
Totally off.
You talked about Mehbooba Mufti. I want to say this. I'm glad you brought that up. Because mithya, the word called mithya, we cannot allow ourselves to be deluded by mithya.
Yeah.
This woman, and I dare say this woman, Omar Abdullah, of course, he has changed his stand after the Pahalgam incident, or Owaisi. These people today had tears for illegal Pakistanis and others living in this country, and they are being deported and being sent out. Their children. I asked this in my X account. Where were these tears of yours when your people were issuing the declaration of leave, convert, or die? Where were your tears for those 500,000 Hindus who had to leave Kashmir under those circumstances?
So, Vibhuti ji, these tears, especially on the television, and Arjun tears, there is a fundamental difference. I think Arjun tears were real, that he had that emotion, that he felt that. These are political tears. Is that fair to say?
It's not only fair, it's absolutely accurate to say so. There are crocodile tears and there are tears of joy. That there's a whole lot of difference in those tears, and I don't trust them at all, particularly not the Kashmiri leadership.
Yeah, building trust. I have a point to make on that one, because relationship, between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, they call themselves each other friends. And I think Krishna is the ultimate example of friend leader. He's friends with Karn, he's friends with Arjun, he is respected by Bhishma. But the friendship is not there to save them from their acts and choices. So if Karn chooses to be with Kauravas on the bad side, Krishna orchestrates his killing, even though they are friends. So this friend leader, Modi goes and hugs everybody and he's very friendly, calls them friends. But that doesn't limit him from taking actions, and it also doesn't mean that he will save others from what they choose. Like if Pakistan chooses terrorism, then that has to be taken care of, no matter how friendly he is with whoever on the other side.
Absolutely correct, Saab. You have brought out a very important point here, that you can be friends with everybody, but not the degree of friendship need not be the same for everybody. It's not DEI policy that needs to be applied in friendship. All friendships, relationships differ.
Yeah.
And an educated man and a good mind also understands the differentiating element in friendships and relationships. Unless and until we are able to distinguish and differentiate in relationships, no relationship will flourish. Because you have to draw a Lakshman Rekha in every behavioral concept of yours. So my lessons of reading Mahabharata and Gita comes from a very interesting incident in my life, when in 1983, when I was a young RBI officer in Bangalore. So we had invited to the Bankers Club a management consultant who was a Harvard PhD and MBA and major consultant. And he said in that meeting in October 1983 that we Indians, and specifically Hindus, need not go to Ivy League colleges to learn the lessons of management. The lessons of management and life management, every success formula is all given there in Bhagavad Gita in our texts. And as you would have read, you have read Bhagavad Gita many times, I know that. Chapter 18 also lays down the success formula, right?
Yeah.
All the management.
Chaitani, Bhutani, 5 pillars of success.
Yes, five pillars are there. All management consultants are following the same principles.
Yeah.
But the lesson that I see, when he triggered that part in my mind, he said, study, don't read. And there's a whole lot of difference between reading and studying. So when I was trying to understand, go through Bhagavad Gita and stories of Ram, all the itihas about Ramayana and Mahabharata, I was looking at the contextual part of it. And I realized, it was a realization suddenly that I had, no character in either of the Ramayana or Mahabharata has been called a bad character.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong. No character has been called, no person has been called a bad person or a good person. Yeah. All that these two itihas teaches us is that whoever you are, you have to put up with the consequences of what you choose to do.
Yeah.
What
choices and karma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to bear the consequences of your choices and decisions you make. That's what you talked about, karma.
Yeah.
That's what you talked about Yudhishthir's decision when he committed to playing chopper.
Yeah.
When he was being trapped. Right? There it led to Draupadi Chirharan. Right? So that's what is important for us to wear. So when somebody is asking that don't kill me at this point in time because my Rath is stuck in the mud, he was reminded, where was your moral fiber when Draupadi's Chirharan was happening? This is what is important. How do you establish equivalence in scenarios is very critical for us to understand. Dronacharya, Bhishma Pitama, everybody bore the consequences of the choices and decisions they made, right or wrong. Nobody sits on judgment of that.
Yeah. Friend or no friend.
So I consider friend or no friend. And besides, another thing is very important. Friendship is one place, business is another,
Yeah.
and personal equation, they're all three different things. Absolutely three.
So
Those people who
Vibhuti,
are
you brought
successful.
up 2 points, and I want to take up on both. One is Yudhishthir and the chopper game. So Mahabharata is not only 18 days of war.
Yeah.
It was going on for a long time. There were many times where Pandavas could have had the war, but probably they were not ready. And also, war should be the last choice. So, this whole thing of preparing during the war, I mean, you have to go through, I mean, even during their exile, Arjuna spent a year in kind of Himalayas getting this Shakti from Mahadev or Shiva. So they were preparing as well, arming themselves, developing alliances, getting rid of some other people like Jarasandh. And one of the things that kind of fascinating to me is also weakening the enemy. And the main thing I see there is Kawach Kundal of Karn. And somehow it was taken away. And you know the story, how it was taken away. But this is the biggest question, these days going on. The Kawach and Kundal of Pakistan, the nuclear arms, has it been hit?
Yes, it has been hit. It has been hit. A former Air Force senior officer who participated in Kargil War, he also wrote the note. And internationally, what is happening nowadays, because of satellite positioning, Krishnaji, a lot of pictures are taken.
Right.
You no longer require New York Times and Times of India to go and take the pictures after the war. There are real-time pictures being taken. Even the instruments that are attacking, they have the ability to do real live photo shoot. So Pakistan's damage has been extensive.
Yeah.
And in this particular scenario, why this 90 hours that happened, Pakistan was hands up, pants down. I mean, I'm very happy saying that. So this is where Pakistan got completely naked. The reason is very simple. They did not anticipate India will retaliate in the manner that India did. That was important. I think for the Indian government, it came a point of no return. Now I will not let you do that. Because when you kill people after identifying them as Hindus, by telling them to drop their pants, that's why I use the word their hands up and pants down happened. Because their killers were asking Indian tourists, Hindu tourists, to drop their pants and show whether they were circumcised or not. It was a religious terror killing. This is very important for everybody to know. There comes a moment in time that you and I, we all meet in a point of no return.
Yeah.
That is my point of no return. You identified and killed people in front of their wives, made them widows. And you know, Sindoor is a very important element of Hindu marriage union. So when you do that, then it is personal. It becomes personal for every single Deshbhakt and Hindu. And it ought to be. And therefore, it was important to teach them a lesson. And India's response was remarkably in terms of paralyzing their entire air force and hitting on. I have been saying this, Krishnaji, for a very long time. Some of the things which I've said several years ago, maybe I was ahead of the curve, but I was right. I have always been saying that India must call Pakistan's nuclear bluff. And I was delighted when Prime Minister in his statement made that we had to call that nuclear bluff. The reason is also very simple. Soon after 9/11, to my limited capacity of understanding geopolitics, I recognize one thing very quickly, that United States will take control of the Pakistan nuclear scenario. And therefore, they allowed the Pakistanis to keep saber rattling about it.
I think PM
That's why it
used
was
the
important
word
to call that
blackmail. I think that's a stronger word.
Yes.
But I think that's an accurate word.
Yeah.
And that also meant, some sort of, whenever PM Modi speaks, there is some bigger meaning behind it. So when he says that I
Yes.
can't tolerate, nuclear blackmail, probably you are
Yes.
right. The Kawach and
Yeah.
Kundal of, in Mahabharata language of Pakistan has been kind
Yes.
of taken away. Um, so
Yes.
one thing you brought up now and also before is Atma, Paramatma, Brahman. And so I've been always thinking, how does that mean? He tells Arjun that, the soul never dies and the body is here. That probably, so is body important or unimportant? And the answer seems to be both. Body is unimportant because Atma is, always there and body has got a transient period. But it's very important because anything you do in this Maya lok or our universe is done by the body. So I think it's important to keep this atmosphere clean. When you say that, war on terror, that simply means that you are taking away those elements that are hindrance to a healthy growth. And we showed that in Kashmir, right? People, the boys who used to have guns in their hands now have books in their hands. It's a trend. It hasn't happened 100%. But we could see, I was there as a tourist, and I could see that we could walk anywhere with impunity until this Pahalgam happened. So this war, although should be the last choice, but sometimes it's a cleansing operation. I mean, what do you think about that?
Debate, dialogue, discussion, keep going on until you find a solution. And then comes a scenario that you can't find a solution. Then you got to go into the boxing ring and have a 12 rounder. You can't solve it out, then go to the Dharma Yudh, because then it's a dharmic war. But evil and good always exist.
Yeah.
This has been a pattern of life all along, just as 80-20 rule applies every single point in time. Now it is 90-10, perhaps, because of varieties of factors. So 80-20 rule is all about the fact that at any given point in time, 20% people are doing things, 80% people are just part of the process.
Okay.
Just as whether you are a population of 1.4 billion, it will have a one prime minister, and population of 350 million will have one president.
Yeah.
And then you will have a million people country that also will have one president. But the scope and size of operation varies in each one of them. So there are few people who are running the whole show. Other people are dependent on the process to happen. So that's what I meant by 80-20 rule in my interpretation of things. So basically what happens is in these scenarios is the fact that, when you are dealing with a scenario of this kind, some people are controlling the narrative. That's what is important for us to know. It is one Modi, it's one this one. But the critical element here is, how do we deal with this scenario from debate, dialogue, and discussion into war? Why does war have to be arriving? But there is a very important reason for that.
Yeah.
Compromise is a very bad word in my definition of things. Because remember one thing, in the compromise, in any compromise, if you go back into the history of itihas or daily happenings, the one who compromises is generally the person who is on the right. He has to compromise because he has to give in.
Yeah.
And in a compromise, neither is happy. You know why, Krishnaji? The one who gives also feels that if only I had insisted, I wouldn't have given so much.
Yeah.
And the guy who gets, he says, if I had insisted, I would have got more than this.
Yeah.
It is the most unhappy kind of a situation. So compromise is a bad word. And I always say that, can there be a compromise between 2 drops of poison and a gallon of milk? No. Nobody will drink a gallon of milk, even given for free, with all the lassi and ice cream in it. But if you know that there are 2 drops of poison in it, nobody will have it. Where is the compromise now? So the meaning of compromise is to establish your least cost operations, your least thing that you are agree with.
Yeah.
This is the line I will not go beyond. So when you establish that line, I will not go beyond, then you have now established your position.
Yeah.
Then you have to determine whether you will hold or you will let go. That's what Bhagavan Krishna told Arjun, that what are you talking about? Your relatives, they are here to kill you. And you are weeping and crying that even though they are here to kill you, they are not having that dilemma in their mind. Why are you having that dilemma in your mind? That's the time we Hindus are generally, we get stuck in the wrong side of quotations. Ahimsa parmo dharma, we get stuck on, but we forget dharmo rakshati rakshati wali baat hum bhul jate hain.
Right logic at wrong time. You know, I think
Exactly.
that says it all. But I want to just continue this thought process. I was going to bring it later, but compromise. So when we, in the middle of the war or at the end of the war, when somebody is losing, they're sometimes willing to go on their knees and, pardon me, and I will never do it again. And that has happened. India's whole history is like that. When we have kind of pardoned, or we thought that, okay, Prithviraj, go away, come back, and keeps happening. And then in 1971 war, we give away 93,000 soldiers, and in return, what did we get? So what you said, compromise, or maybe wrong choices at that time. Why this has happened so many times in India, but Mahabharata says no. I mean, once you made your choice, now you should pay for your actions and consequences.
Absolutely correct, sir. This is very important for everybody to know. There is something about our DNA. I don't know. I did a show with Sanjay Dikshit ji on Jaipur Dialogue along with Tahir Gora from Canada. And I said only one thing. My concern is that when you are surrendering your strong position, then you are letting the enemy survive. And that's never a good thing. And I said in the show, actually, that I've sincerely hoped that whatever might happen, don't bring in the Prithviraj Chauhan mentality, go live one more time.
Yeah.
So Modi doctrine was very great when he gave that speech to the nation, in which he said that you fire a gun and I will send you a gola.
Yeah.
Right?
Goli ka jawab gola se.
Gola se denge. He said that very clearly. And this is not the end, it is a cessation. It's not a ceasefire, it's a pause. Right? But I was concerned about it.
Yeah.
Because next time, Pakistan will be prepared. And they have Turkey and China to be their boosters.
Yeah.
So next time, if they do it, they will know you are going to throw the gola. He will be ready with something else. He won't be doing that. But there is a silver lining to that. Pakistan did not expect the kind of response that India gave. Now you told your enemy. That's the reason that they had to surrender so quickly. What could have happened in 7 days happened in 2 days. Now they will be ready. So you gave your enemy unnecessary chance. That's the point which I'm trying to say. So you did let your enemy slip away. And I am not happy about it. And I was reading the comments of viewers. A lot of them resonated with that it is deja vu all over again. We again allowed the Prithviraj Chauhan syndrome to return to our essential dealing with the enemy. That's not okay. That doesn't leave me happy.
Yeah, there are many other people, who will resonate with you, Vibhuti ji, but we don't know everything. And
Yes.
giving benefit of doubt to Modi ji and Indian government I think, is prudent, personally, because, how far we could have escalated and what we could have got into is one thing. But I don't know if we should be hopeful that they will change their ways. This will be a lesson, but
Look, I'll tell you, I agree with
history
you
doesn't
that
support that.
Prime Minister Modi definitely is not Manmohan Singh type Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Nor is he Rajiv Gandhi type of president. He's a very wise man. with a very good head on his shoulders. It's not for no reason that the world leadership ranking he is as a high as ever rated continuously.
Yeah.
And the man has established himself around the world that every political leader wants to be like Modi,
Yeah.
like they say like they used to say about Michael Jordan. Everybody wants to be like Mike. Everybody wonders, and there is no country in the world where Modi ji has gone and diaspora has not turned up with such enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So all these people wonder, what magic does he bring? And he brings the magic of Karma Yogi. So probably he knows definitely much more than I know. I don't know about you, but I definitely knows much more about it. But I'm saying to you is the mentality or the itihas of Prithviraj Chauhan repeating itself.
Yeah. But at the
And my
same time, I
favorite
feel that
statement,
this is
yeah,
like I mentioned, Mahabharata was a long period. This was not the
yeah.
finale. And
No,
hopefully,
it's not the finale. Yeah,
yeah, and hopefully we won't get to a finale. Maybe things will
I hope
settle
not.
down.
No,
And
no.
he
Modi
is
ji's
still,
statement.
I think India has still got the upper hand with the Indus Water Treaty and the
Yeah.
conditions that are there.
No, there are two very important elements which Prime Minister Modi laid out very clearly.
Yeah.
Trade and terror can't go together. Talks and terror can't go together. Water and blood can't flow together. That's the policy. That's
And
very, very clear. And
if they
I give
have
him
done the
full credit for
nuclear
that.
hit, I think that itself is a big,
Mm.
big thing that they have achieved. So one thing you brought up, Vibhuti, was narrative and or building relationship and doing this. The team. They are going to have a team that will go and tell the story of India. Um, and it's like Krishna taught act but don't get attached. And I like this word diplomatic non-attachment. So diplomacy, as you said, and many people have said, there are no friends, right? It's all interest. Like India is now talking to Afghanistan, which is the right thing to do, or anybody, Baluchistan, we're sympathetic to them. So this whole storytelling, building alliances, it happened in Mahabharata times as well. The Duryodhan and Arjun both went to Krishna for something, and they all built their own alliance. Is a continuous, ongoing process, right?
Yeah. It always goes on and on and on. Look at this way. Why is Trump's journey to Middle East?
Yeah.
For who it is important? It is not for America getting $1 trillion worth of investments from Qatar or 600 billion from Saudi Arabia. It
Yeah.
is driven by a very essential need and understanding of the actual geopolitical challenge which America has.
Mhm.
So here is the conversation. If it has cropped up in my mind, it will crop up in the minds of many people. Israel cannot live forever. Live forever. Mind the word that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Under a state of perpetual war-like scenario.
Right.
It cannot.
Yeah.
There are just 8 million people.
Yeah.
8 million people died in COVID. Does anybody remember them? So for America, the foreign policy and geopolitical element, what has become very critical to decide is that we are perpetually in conflict, not war, with the entire Middle East because of Israel. 8 million people, we are at war with 2 billion people. Likewise for China, we are at tension with China because of Taiwan, 20 million people. There has to be some solution for that, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, for in India, as you said, we have to determine what do we want. See, it is very important to remember in geopolitics to define this is what I want. Like Trump laid down the clear thing. I don't want any tariff. You don't tariff me, I don't tariff you. Matter over. You tariff me 100, I tariff you 100. Equality established.
Yeah.
Whether who can afford it, cannot afford it, I do not know. But at the moment, US manufactures nothing. What is he doing? He is trying to tell the world, you are using my market to make your money. It's time for you to do some profit sharing plan.
Yeah.
Part of American economic life, profit sharing plan. So give me some. You are using my market to make your millions. Give me. You are charging. That's where he charged Canada, that you are charging my milk and eggs 200% tariff, and I'm charging you 10% here. Or BMW, Mercedes, you are paying 2%, and while you are charging me 8%, 10% in your country. So
Yeah.
as it is my inferior car, you are charging more tariff. I become totally non-competitive. It's very important for that, for India to lay down for a long number of years. We have a very self-destructive habit of drifting and जाने भी दो यारो attitude. देख लेंगे. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
So you are saying that
We
you
have to
should
get
be
out of that
assertive.
mind.
Yeah.
You got to be assertive about it. And like you are a surgeon,
Yeah.
when a patient comes to your table, you don't tell him, okay, I'll come 6 months later. You do it here, otherwise you will die, or you will come 6 months later if you are still alive. The choice is now, and it's to be done today. Likewise, you have to draw a timeline for everything. As we say in our work, everything becomes very deterministic and differentiated the moment you add 2 words to that. By when? So
Yeah.
if I tell you I want a glass of water, it doesn't mean anything because you're not going to get me a glass of water, right?
Yeah.
But if you were sitting face to face, and if you asked me a glass of water, I will have no answer until you told me I want it now, or I will need water after 6 hours. There you go. That's what I'm saying.
So
Yeah.
when I hear you, I feel like diplomacy is always non-attached. It's so.
It is. The diplomacy is, the international geopolitics is not about how to be polite, nice, sweet in the moment.
Yeah.
It's a very hard, calculated scenario. Like in your case, when you decided to do FRCAS in London,
Yeah.
it needed certain things to be done to achieve that.
Yeah.
And there is no compromise on that. Likewise, in life, you want to say something, do something, you have to know in international geopolitics, it is said the geopolitician sits and thinks about what he gets the instruction to think about. I want the world to look like this 20 years from now. And to get there after 20 years, what do I have to do today? That's why a 1,000-mile walk journey begins with the first baby step to be taken. That's what is important in geopolitics. What do we want? Many a times, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not the global corporate goal. It's a total misunderstood word.
But
Misunderstood,
Vibhuti,
wrongly applied.
I always feel like when we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, sometimes we feel like the Kutums don't fight. But Pandu and Kaurav were brothers, right? Cousins. And if you talk of India, Pakistan, they were kind of one country at not so long ago.
Right.
So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, sometimes we feel like there is a meaning that means everybody is cozy always. And the same thing happens when people say, Krishna says, yada yada hi dharmasya, he will come back. But people forget that if he comes back, he will make you and I work. He didn't do it. Arjun had to fight. I mean, he just gave lecture to Arjun.
He gave lecture to Arjun, taught him, coached him, and got onto the driver's seat.
सर में मुकुट हाथ में चाबुक रथ के चक्र में धूल मिला है रथ के चक्र में धूल मिला है धर्म क्षेत्र और कुरुक्षेत्र में मन को मोह का शूल